Hi everyone, welcome back to Rossy Rivera Art. My name is Rossy Rivera and today I'm sharing how to transform this paper roll into a beautiful gnome or gunk. I hope you like it. Let's get started. To start, we're going to measure 5 centimeters since this is going to be the bottom part or the body. We're going to do this all around the tube or roll. Once we've done that, we're gonna cut from the bottom up to that 5 centimeter line. If you notice, I'm getting 4 pieces out of this, and then from those 4 pieces or sections, I'm gonna cut again in half, as usual, always up to that 5 centimeter line. Now we have 8 flaps or pieces, and I'm gonna do the same thing again and cut those in half one more time, so we're gonna have 16. Once that's done, it's gonna look sort of like this. Now I'm doing this so I can put the pieces together. So that piece that we haven't cut, that side that we didn't cut, is gonna be the gnome's body, and the pieces that we did cut are gonna turn into this, like his hat. It's gonna add glue to the tops and put them together. To make it easier to glue the pieces well together, I'm gonna use a brush. And it's better if you let it dry thoroughly before we continue working, but you can also just work directly while it's drying. Now on another paper tube, we're getting 2 pieces. They're 5 centimeters tall each, and I'm gonna cut across from them so they're open all the way through, and they have to be 5 centimeters because, as you notice, I'm gonna put them inside of the base of the gnome's body. So just rolling them in there, and now that's gonna be reinforced, and we're gonna have to let that top part dry for a bit. Now once that's dry, we're gonna have to seal the cardboard, and for this we can use primer or glue, the same glue we use for the cold porcelain clay recipe that is also available on this channel. And we do this just to make sure the cardboard is properly sealed and protected, but it also helps the clay stick better to the cardboard. Once that's dry, you'll notice it has a little bit of shine. And again, the bottom is reinforced, but the top part hasn't been reinforced yet. So we're gonna get a little bit of aluminum foil. This piece is 14 by 14 centimeters. You can use 15 by 15. It's gonna work just fine, maybe even better. I'm just gonna add some glue at the top part there, and then glue the aluminum foil into that space. Okay. We do this to make sure it's strong enough because we don't want it to sink or have those small pieces show through when we add the hat and clay. Now I'm just cutting the excess at the top and making sure it's secure enough, shaped into the cone we have at the top. And then the excess foil, I'm forming it into a ball and just stuffing it into the rest of the gnome's body. Just like this. Now, when we work on it, it's not gonna lose its shape. We can also just stuff it with paper or anything else we have that's a soft material and can give it that structure. Now we have a little gnome ready. It looks like a fairy house or something. Now we are going to cover the entire piece in clay. For that, I'm using 2 tablespoons of gray clay. This is up to you which color you want to use. Now I'm just gonna stretch that clay to cover at least that 5 centimeter height we have going on there. Gonna make sure it's also long enough to go all the way around our little tube. I'm just wrapping it around, and I'm gonna cut where both sides meet. That's gonna help it stick well together and stay in place. And I'm just gonna smooth that out. Now we're gonna cut the excess at the bottom just to make it even. I'm just adding some glue to the bottom to make sure that bottom part of the clay can stick to the bottom part of the tube. And we are gonna add a base, but I just want to make sure there aren't any gaps when everything's put together. Again, just smoothing down everything, trying to get that seam to be less noticeable. But again, this is going to be covered by his beard, so we're just being extra cautious. Just like this. And now to cover the bottom, we're going to get half of a tablespoon of clay, same color we used. I'm kneading that into a ball, and then I'm going to stretch that big enough to cover that bottom part. And for that, I'm using an extra piece of cardboard. So I can seal that properly. And I'm gonna add a little bit of paper just to fill in that gap. Make sure, again, it doesn't sink or anything. Especially since the clay can sink sometimes when it's drying. So we're accounting for everything that we know can happen. Adding glue to that little clay circle and gluing it into the clay. Just cutting a little bit extra around that cardboard circle so it's not too tight. I'm gonna even it out a bit and then glue it in place. Making sure it's well secure, and that extra space we left around the cardboard circle, we're gonna use it to blend everything into the main piece. And I'm using water to help me blend this easier. Once we've smoothed that down and it's nice and polished, we're gonna let it dry for a bit, and it's gonna look like this. So now I'm gonna be able to get my shades or toners, and then just add them at the bottom there to give it a little bit of depth, just like this. You can see the shine sometimes when the light hits it, and it's gonna look really nice in the end. Now I have 1 teaspoon of the same colored clay for each arm, so that's 2 teaspoons. And I'm getting one of those, forming it into a ball, then making a cylinder. Flattening that a bit, and then we're gonna measure. I'm gonna use my fingernail just to measure. Make sure we have that 5 centimeter line from the bottom, and then place the arm around that area using that little mark as a guideline. Now I'm just putting it in its rightful place, and we're going to make the other one the same way. Now we have both even, and these are 4.5 centimeters tall. And now I'm just gonna make the gloves for his hands. And for that we need half a teaspoon in red clay and half a teaspoon in white clay. Sorry, 1/4 of a teaspoon in white clay, and that's for each one. Now for that red piece, I'm making sort of a cylinder shape, so it's an elongated circle, an oval. And then as you notice, I just cut to make that thumb separate. We're not gonna outline the fingers since this is a glove, but I'm just gonna make sure everything looks round. And now in the part where the hand would go, I'm just gonna make a small hole to get a better shape all around. Now we're gonna add the part that goes in white, kneading that clay thoroughly, forming it into a ball. And now we're gonna do sort of like a donut, so making a circle in the middle just to give it the shape we need. Now we're gonna add some glue to the bottom of our glove and then paste both pieces together. I'm using this tool for this so it's easier to move it around and to do this part, which is adding the texture to the fluffy part of the gloves. You can use any tools you have specifically for this, pins or a toothpick. Now I did the same for the other glove as well, and now we can glue the glove into the arm. So I'm just adding that little bit of glue and putting both pieces together. And again, just blending and adding that little bit of plush-like texture, fluffy texture. Now that we have both of them, we're gonna add a little bit of glue to the top on the inside part and then place it onto the body. And then just glue it in place. The other one, I'm gonna bend it a little because he's gonna be carrying a Christmas tree. So I don't want it to be flush against the body. Now we're gonna let that dry. And now for the beer, we're getting 1.5 tablespoons of white clay. We're gonna knead that thoroughly until we have a ball. And then we're gonna form that into a drop shape. Flattening it down a bit. And then we're gonna start measuring against our basic structure. So it's sort of triangle shape, but we're gonna make sure it's wide enough and long enough to cover his body. And now I'm just adding some texture with this tool. Again, you can use a toothpick for this. Crochet needles work too. And we're gonna do that to the entire piece. Now once we're done with that, we're just gonna give it a little bit more detail or shape the bottom of his beard to the left. And again, adding that texture to the sides of the beard. And then we can place it where it goes on the body, right in the front. Just like this. Now his beard is ready, and now we're gonna place the nose. For the nose, we're gonna add an indent in the middle of his beard without affecting the beard. And then we're gonna measure 1/4 of a teaspoon. We're gonna measure that real quick. So yeah, 1/4 of a teaspoon of clay and our skin color of choice. We're gonna form that into a ball and then more of an oval shape. We're gonna give it a little bit of highlights using orange. But we're gonna do this one before just to make sure we don't get any of this color on the beard. And now we're gonna add some glue into that indent we made and place the nose. Just like this. Trying to blend both pieces without getting the color on the beard. And now we're gonna make his hat. For the hat, we need 3 tablespoons of red clay. We're gonna knead that thoroughly, form it into a ball, and then make this sort of cone or drop shape. Once that's done, again, I'm just making that hole at the bottom of the piece. Similar to the way we did the top part of the tree. And we're just trying to make sure it's as wide as the top part of our basic structure. So I'm gonna try that out and then just keep stretching it until I get the size I need, like this here. And we're gonna have to shape that or push that a bit into place because we want it to cover over the top part of the beard. And since the clay is like it's fresh, it hasn't dried, then it's gonna let us move it around and bend it and shape it just the way we need. See the front part of the hat. Moving it to cover the nose, and the sides I'm using to cover the arms. Just the top part of the arms. We keep pushing the hat down and it's slowly gonna attach itself into our structure. Then to the front, we're adding a little bit of flair onto the hat. Just like this. Covering his nose, moving it upwards just a bit. And now we're going to fully bind that into the aluminum foil we have underneath. And that's gonna make it a bit thinner. And we're gonna make it thinner at the top as well to make it pointy. And then give that little hat tip a little bit of flair. So making that curve. And that's all I'm doing right now, just making sure it's well placed and it's going to stay in place. And now we are going to add some texture. Remember, this can be done with the tool I have here. Or you can also just use a crochet needle. In this case, I have this one covered in a coffee straw. And it's going to help me just add those little marks as well. So adding them from the sides, going inwards. These are the folds you would have on the hat. Just like this, all the way to the top. And I'm adding a little bit of texture to that flare on the front as well. Now I'm just gonna smooth that out, make sure it's well blended in. And I'm just doing that all through the hat. Once I'm done and it looks the way I want it to, in this case it looks like this. And now we're going to enhance this area in the front. So I'm getting 1/2 a tablespoon of red clay, forming it into a ball, and then make a very long cylinder or string that can go all the way around the hat. This is going to help give it some volume. In my case, I'm just measuring that around, and then we're going to start placing it from the back, and we're not going to need any glue since our clay again is very fresh. And I'm doing this on the very edge, so right on the edge. And now I'm just going to make sure everything's well blended in together. And it's going to look like this, one main piece, one big piece. Of course, you're going to want to check this from multiple angles. See if you catch any differences, and now you have a little bit more volume. Now we're going to make the Christmas tree to add that charm. And for the Christmas tree, we're going to need 1 teaspoon of green clay, and we're going to get 1 toothpick painted brown. I'm going to knead that clay thoroughly. Form it into a ball, then a drop. I didn't like how that one looked, so I'm just making that again. Making it flat at the bottom. This one is 4 centimeters tall. Now I'm going to add some glue to one side of the toothpick, and I'm going to insert that into our little clay tree. A little bit less than halfway. Now with the scissors, we're going to make the cuts at the bottom all around. So if you notice, I'm making the cut and then pulling a little bit to give it that volume, to make it go upwards. My scissors got stuck on my fingers there. Now these ones work, but they're a little too thick for my liking, so this is why I'm cutting them in half. All around. Now we're going to do the same thing on the next line. And we're going to do the same thing again, cutting these little triangles in half to make this tree look fuller. Just like this. Again, the next line in the same way. And we're going to do this all the way to the top. We're going to leave just a tiny space at the top, because if we go all the way up, it's going to be too weak. And now we're going to add some details in red, but before we do that, we're going to make some cuts through the bottom of our little tree, so we have that full look from all angles. Now using white acrylic paints. I'm going to add some touches to the top to make it look a little bit like snow, and adding some white as well to some of the branches, to some of the leaves. Once we're done with that and it looks the way we like it, it's, in my case again, it looks like this. And I made 16 tiny red clay balls out of 1 teaspoon of clay, and we have these tiny ones, and I'm just gonna place them all over the tree. In my case, I'm using the smallest ones at the top and leaving any larger ones to go at the bottom of the tree so it looks a bit more even. Once we're done, it's gonna look like this. Now we have to let that one dry so we can place it where it goes. I have one I made previously. This one's already dry. And now we're going to put it onto our little gonk's arm. It's gonna go right here. Just trying to be careful not to damage the rest of her work. And I'm placing this one just like this, with this little Christmas tree. And I'm gonna get that hand a bit closer to his body to really make it look like he's holding it. And now we're gonna decorate the part of his hat. In this case, I'm using some golden stars. This is natural colored clay, so no extra colors added. And I'm also going to make some pine cones. For each pine cone, I'm getting 1/4 of a teaspoon in brown clay, kneading that thoroughly, form it into a ball, and then into a sort of drop shape. Just like this. We're just not making it too pointy. Again, we're just making a pine cone, so that's what we're trying to channel. Now I'm going to put that into a toothpick just to make it easier to make those cuts. And we're going to cut on this one the same way we did for the Christmas tree, the little tree he's carrying. So making those tiny cuts, but we're not going to keep them facing outwards. We're actually going to put them back into the rest of the piece because we want it to be round, and again mimicking that pine cone shape. Do the same thing on the next lines. You can see me like getting rid of that pointy end and doing that all the way to the top, again leaving that small gap. And now I'm just gonna add some texture to the bottom. And then the rest of those small pine cone sections. I'm removing that from the toothpick and then just like pressing it together to get a little bit of a piece where I can grab it from. Like a small stem. And then with some white acrylic paint again. Notice I'm making some extra cuts if it seems like it's possible. And then adding some touches with this white paint just on the areas we rounded up, so we removed the pointy ends. Just like this. I'm adding a little bit more. And there we go. We have a little pine cone. I made 3 of these. I also made these tiny sort of pine tree branches, and the same way we did the pine tree. Now I have these small pieces in red clay as well. Small hearts. And now I'm gonna try to place these on the hat in a way that they still stand out, given that these pieces are red and the hat is red too. I'm gonna start out with a pine cone, the other pine cone right next to it, and then the third pine cone right at the top. That one slid right out, so just adding more glue, making sure it's well secured in place. The one at the top looks darker because that one's already dry, which is also why it fell. If the pieces are fresh, if the clay is still fresh, it's going to be easier to stick to each other. And these ones, I'm just going to cut off the extra wire, since it makes it easier to stick it into the pieces sometimes. And I added that one under the 3 pine cones, and then I'm going to start adding the other ones around. And those small pieces in red are going to go over the small branches, so they actually stand out. So there goes a heart. And then using the smallest spheres or balls I can find, I'm adding them onto the pine tree branches. Just like this. Now I'm reaching out for the star and placing it right to the left of this entire decoration. Then adding a natural clay one. And here's the thing, on the natural clay, we're going to add a little bit of this white highlighter or toner, and that's going to give it that pearly finish. And we're going to keep adding some of these pieces we made, some of these charms. In this case, I'm using the white and natural clay. And again, we're going to give it some of that pearl highlighting as well. Trying to get and put the biggest ones at the bottom and the smallest ones at the top. Now I'm adding some of the smallest stars around, and I'm gonna do this to the entire right side of his hat. This is up to your own taste. This is what I like it to look like. So in my case, this one looks very well decorated all around. And now I'm gonna add some little drops using white acrylic paints. This one also has that sort of pearly finish, and this is mostly just for that extra touch to bring all the pieces together. And I put those all the way throughout in between our little clay pieces. And now I'm gonna add some touches to his gloves, also in white. I'm giving him a little star here. And I didn't like how that heart looked at the top, so I moved it downwards onto his shirt. Adding a little bit of glow with white paint. Now I'm going to add some dots to his glove as well. Just 3 little dots. And I'm going to do the same to the other glove. And that's it. We have our little gonk all ready. And he's very festive. So we basically turned a paper tube, a cardboard paper tube, I don't know, into this beautiful gonk that you can definitely use on your living room, dining room, or anywhere else in your house. I hope you like this class. Thank you as always for watching us. Thank you for your messages. Thank you for supporting our channel. This means a lot. My name is Rossy Rivera, and this is Manos Creativas. Many blessings.